at least for me. I love daffodils as well. And I'm always happy to see that. Somebody said they're just like sunshine. So welcome this morning to our first Sunday in March. This month, as the signs of spring are becoming evident all around us, the Centers for Spiritual Living worldwide are examining the idea of release and renewal. And as I was thinking about this, I was and preparing for our annual meeting last week, I thought, this is a good time to introduce a new theme for Mountainside. So while our mission remains the same, to be a vibrant, open community with an expanding awareness of love, kind of our theme for this year is live like somebody left the gate wide open. We've been tied up, well, not tied up, but we have been in this lockdown and we've been confined. And as people are getting the vaccine and restrictions are lifted, and hopefully we will soon be going back into person, meeting in person, it's like, live like the gate is wide open. Let's examine the possibilities. And so this month, as we are talking about release and renewal, how perfect that is for us as a center as well as personally. So we can release some of these limiting beliefs and begin to embrace the idea of infinite possibilities for ourselves, our community, and for the world. So today, I invite you to join me in examining the Christian tradition of Lent. I believe that we can use the idea behind this spiritual practice to deepen our own spiritual life and to transform not only ourselves, but the world around us. As many of you know, I grew up in a very traditional Christian church, and so this Lenten season is a very important time to me. The practice of the Lenten season today comes from the Council of Nicaea. Now, the council was held in the year 325, and their purpose was to codify Christianity. And during the council, the church officials codified the books of the Bible, and they also established certain practices in an attempt to bring uniformity to this new religion, to this new experience called Christianity. Now, over the centuries prior to the Council of Nicaea and after, the specifics of Lent have been modified. However, the principle behind the practice of Lent has always held steady. It is a time of release, of letting go, and of receiving. It's a time of preparation for the welcoming of the divine, to have a new experience of releasing and acceptance. And it is a time for us to prepare for our own personal transformation. Lent is generally thought of as the 40 days prior to Easter. The 40 representing the days that Jesus spent in the desert prior to his death and his rebirth. And so today Lent begins with Ash Wednesday. Actually, for many people, Lent begins with Fat Tuesday, that last big celebration on Fat Tuesday. And then they move into Ash Wednesday, and we move through this time. But the practice of Lent is a practice of release, of letting go, It is a practice of renewal, of letting go so that we have space to open up for something new. And it is a time of surrender. As it turns out, I'm going to be speaking several times this month. So I'm going to be able to walk us along this path of Lent and through Palm Sunday and the Holy Week and on into Easter. So I'm thrilled to be speaking for these next couple of weeks during a time which is very precious to me. And I believe a time that is rich for us to examine some spiritual practices. Because, I'm a practitioner now of New Thought. So I can look at these practices and I say, well, what does Lent mean for me as someone who is a practitioner of New Thought? Well, our new thoughts come from ancient wisdom. And I realize that as Lent calls me to release limiting beliefs, quite often we talk about fasting during Lent. I like to say it's a time to fast from fear and to feast on the gifts of spirit. To focus my attention on spirit and to set intentions. To live a life of saying yes to new possibilities. You see, as New Thought practitioners, we can use this practice to intentionally release our limiting thoughts and open to divine inspiration. Ernest Holmes wrote, "A change in consciousness does not come by simply willing or wishing. Rather, it is knowing the truth. Experiencing truth is a gradual unfoldment of the inner self." In his writings, Love and Law, Holmes tells us that if we could realize the tremendous power of attraction that holds everything in place, we would know that power was ours. Yet, we often limit ourselves by thoughts of lack and fear. We must open up the door of our consciousness and expand and expand and expand. Because everything that we hold in our life is a reflection of what we hold to be true. So let us practice fasting, releasing that which no longer serves us, and let us feast or accept the divine wisdom and power that is our wisdom and our power, that is your wisdom and your power. Winston Churchill once said, "Fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision." So let us consciously decide to shift our attention to spirit and be courageous in setting an intention to be aligned with the universe, to see and to be only that which is good. Sounds great, doesn't it? But it takes courage to do this. So I want to talk about 3 different steps today of how we can begin to make this shift. So in order to shift our attention to spirit, we must first identify what is blocking spirit from moving through us. So the first thing is that we need to do is release limiting beliefs. Releasing whatever it is that is blocking spirit from moving through me. And sometimes this takes a lot of courage to do. One of the things that I find myself saying so often to myself And I am committed in writing this talk this week. I was committed myself that I am going to release this thought. But it's hanging on. Even this morning, it was still hanging on. And that limiting belief is that I don't have enough time. Somebody asked me the other day what I wanted, and I said I would like to have about a 36-hour day. Because I always feel like I don't have enough time. But I do have time. There is time. I limit myself by thinking that I don't have enough. This is one of the most common fears, the most common limiting beliefs that we as people share, as beings on this planet. It is that there is not enough. You can fill in the blank of whatever it is. For me, it's time. But sometimes people think I don't have enough money. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not talented enough. Whatever that is, collectively on a human scale, on a universal scale, this is the number one thing that blocks people from fully expressing their divinity. And so we can look at this. So, I was thinking about that, and that's when I broke it down. I thought, what is it that I really, I can go through that whole list, but which one really is the belief that is hanging me up the most? And today, or this week anyway, I feel like it's not having enough time. So I need to release that. I ran across this great, I wish that I could say I took credit for this, but I ran across this also this week. It said, look at the word impossible. If we break it apart, it can become I'm possible. And so for just that little shift, when I want to release something, when I'm having these thoughts, these limiting beliefs, rather than thinking it's impossible to get all this done this week, I'm going to stop and say, I'm possible. So I just want to ask you to join me. You can stay muted, but I want you to just say with me, I'm possible. I'm possible. So for whatever limiting belief pops up for you, we can begin to release it by saying, I'm possible. I release any belief in limitation, and I renew my sense of possibility. That's a great affirmation. But let's just boil it down to saying, I'm possible. I renew my sense of possibility. The second step is to live in the question. What is my greatest good? We must be willing to ask and to listen. When we want to release these limiting beliefs, we have to say, what is my greatest good? And be willing to ask and listen. And releasing stories that we tell ourselves that we are not enough to live into that greater good. And so we want to ask this question, what is my greater good? And listen. In his book, Prayers of the Cosmos, Neil Douglas Coates wrote, the inner shrine by which God's name is hallowed can be developed only through letting go. Releasing some of the clutter inside that keeps us too busy to be silent and receptive to the still small voice of the divine. Which leads us to our third step. First, we're going to identify our limiting beliefs and release them. And then we're going to live with the question, what is my greatest good? And the third thing that we're going to do is to surrender to our highest good. And as Neil Douglas Colt said, we need to be silent sometimes and listen. Meditate on the idea that spirit is in you, as you, unfettered, unbound, triumphant, splendid, glorious, free, abundant, infinite possibilities. What is my greatest good if I live into that infinite possibility? When I place my trust in the indwelling presence of God, I am one with infinite wisdom. And so I can look for wisdom by turning within to divine wisdom. I want to end my talk today a little differently. Normally we do a prayer, but I want to share a song with you today, a video with you today. So it's going to take me just a minute to get it set up. But I invite you to just go silent within yourself for a moment and just allow this video and these words to move you through this process and move you deeper into this process of recognizing, going to that place of asking the question and then being still and listening.